Dominica's Kalinago heritage is the focus for History Week 2014. National Coordinator of the GEF Small Grants Programme calls for protection of Dominica's biodiversity, and Dominica is represented at the plant protection meeting. Thanks for joining us for another edition of National Focus. I'm Tasia Floissac.
And I'm Jarna Hector. Stay with us for details of the headline stories and others after this.
A lot of bathtubs are blamed for bruises. Some staircases are accused of being responsible for broken bones. Doors are occasionally viewed suspiciously as causing lesions. A high percentage of tables are accused of producing bleeding or trauma. Violence against women is a crime, and it's everyone's responsibility. It's inexcusable. If you're a victim or witness of physical or psychological violence or abuse, seek help and denounce the perpetrator.
Thanks for staying with us. Teachers from across the island gathered in large numbers at the Benz and Demey playing field last Friday for the celebration of the annual Teachers' Day rally. This year's event, hosted under the theme "It Starts with the Teacher," began with a session of praise and thanksgiving, hailing Christ, the ultimate teacher. The Honorable Minister for Education and Human Resource Development, Tasia, called on teachers to realize the significant roles they play in the lives of the youth.
If you can engage your students constructively, they will develop a thirst for learning and the acquisition of knowledge. And as educators, you will be doing your students and indeed our nation a good service by being able to get them at a very young age to realize the value of a solid education.
The Honorable Minister also congratulated Celia Nicholas, the recipient of this year's Excellence in Education Secondary School Principal Award, for her contribution to the field. Honorable Parliamentary Representative for the Paybush constituency and former primary school educator Matthew Walter admonished all present to never underestimate the power of knowledge, stating that knowledge is key to sustaining economy. He encouraged all teachers to continue serving selflessly for a better nation.
We have a great job to do to change mindsets from the negative to the positive. Because we need to build a country that is conducive to living, a country that is free of violence, a country that is free of all the other social ills. We need to build a country that is exemplary in the OECS and by extension, CARICOM. And I think, and I'm convinced, that the teachers of Dominica have the capacity to be able to achieve those objectives.
Josiah Dupuy, guest speaker and chief fire officer, also addressed the ceremony on a similar note. According to Dupuy, the great work of teachers should be acknowledged every day. He urged all teachers to continue contributing to nation building.
You represent the best quality in most of us. You are the most responsible and important members of our society because your efforts affect the world. It starts with the teacher because Forrest Whitcraft was right when he pronounced, 100 years from now, no one will care what kind of car I drove. No one will care what kind of building I lived in. No one should really care how much money I had in my bank account. But the world might be a better place because you made a difference in the life of a child. I stand here today not as a Nobel Prize winner, but I stand here as a testimony, a living testimony that it truly starts with the teacher.
At Friday's rally, there were performances by students of the Benz Primary School, Earl White and Nickel Coffee. A moment of silence was observed for all deceased educators, particularly Imelda Dejean, Aisha Mark, Freddie Menz, and Cyril Thomas, who were also recognized with plaques. Retired educators Joan Dalrymple, Melanie Francois, Windif Revere Henderson, represented by Lois Bristol, Rosalind Theodore and Vern Pendeng, represented in absentia, were also recognized for long-standing dedication to the field.
The history of the Kalinago people and their contribution to Dominica's heritage will be the focus of Dominica History Week 2014. October 6 to 10 has been set aside to celebrate Dominica's rich heritage.
You have to have a knowledge of your past, where you came from, so you can understand the present and chart a course for the future. So it's very, very important to study history. And also coming in from a colonial experience, a colonial education experience, where we were taught our history from the eyes of European historians and European accounts. Obviously, they had their own perspectives on our history, but now with the work of people like Dr. Lennox Honeychurch and other Caribbean historians, we have, you might want to say, reinterpreted historical events and put them in a proper perspective from the, you might want to say, from the perspective of the so-called victims of certain processes like plantation slavery and genocide against the native peoples and so on.
The Kalinago or Carib people are Dominica's indigenous people. Kalinago heritage, including language, place names, art and craft, canoe building, and knowledge of the natural environment, has greatly influenced Dominica's present-day Creole culture.
Kalinago heritage has played a very important part in the development of what you might consider our Creole culture. Yeah, our Creole culture constitutes elements from the Kalinagos, the Native American people, the indigenous peoples, but also elements from Europe, elements from Africa, and more contemporary elements from Asia and so on. So it is very necessary to get the public to understand the links. So when we look at our Creole culture, we have to recognize the contribution of the Kalinago to that heritage. So History Week, by focusing on the Kalinago history and heritage, helps to inform the public and shed new light wherever it's possible on the contribution of Kalinago heritage.
A national exhibition of Dominica's Kalinago heritage to be staged at the Old Mill Cultural Center from Wednesday, October 8th, is part of activities planned for this week. Gregory Rabes, Cultural Projects Officer in the Division of Culture, tells more.
This exhibition will run from a week from that particular Wednesday. So it will run for the rest of History Week and then a couple of additional days next week. And that exhibition, of course, will be old photographs and artifacts, Kalinago artifacts, craft items and information, video information, you know, generally for the visitors, the school students who visit the Old Mill, so that they can immerse themselves really into Kalinago heritage.
Schools around the island, as well as the general public, are encouraged to participate fully in the activities planned for Dominica History Week 2014. History Week is an annual event coordinated by the Division of Culture and the National Cultural Council. It is held as part of the calendar of events to celebrate Dominica's independence.
Head of Dominica's Plant Protection and Quarantine Unit, Ryan Ansem, represented the island at the regional workshop of the International Plant Protection Convention, IPPC, which took place in Jamaica last month. The IPPC deals with developing phytosanitary standards to guide plant protection organizations in their mandates to prevent the spread of invasive species. At the four-day meeting, which began on September 22nd, one of the top items on the agenda was the transportation of foreign species via the exportation of used vehicles.
This year we had two very important draft standards. one on international movement of used vehicles, used equipment and machinery. And this standard is very important. We import approximately 50 used vehicles a month in Dominica, and that is significant. The risk of importation is real. We are very much concerned with the risks involved in the importation of used vehicles. And studies have shown that used vehicles can bring in pests, they can bring in soil, they can bring in seeds, they can bring in debris, and we are very much concerned.
The movement of heavy equipment was also identified as a culprit in the spread of foreign species. Ansem explained that soil still attached to used equipment contain foreign pathogens invisible to the naked eye, which are transported to the country of import.
The Plant Protection and Quarantine Act clearly states that commodities such as used vehicles must come in free of soil and free of pests. And that is why the draft international standard is very important. It gives guidelines and recommendation on how we go about putting measures in place to prevent the entry of pests into our country by these commodities.
In that regard, standards were outlined in the recent meeting to govern the export of used heavy equipment and vehicles. Seeds as a vehicle for foreign invasive species was also on the agenda.
The other standard that we discussed in Jamaica is the movement of seed. Now, seed is very important. Seed is a pathway for pests, seed-borne pests, example, 5 viruses. A quarantine officer on the port doing a visual inspection of a seed will not detect viruses and other viroids in the seed. And that is why it's important that we do the necessary pest risk analysis to assess and evaluate the risk involved in importation of seed.
Anselm further reported that the meeting was productive and that the relevant stakeholders have been engaged. Examples of invasive species are the black sigatoka and the giant African snail. The International Plant Protection Convention, IPPC, is an international agreement on plant health to which 181 signatories currently adhere. It aims to protect cultivated and wild plants by preventing the introduction and spread of pests. The Secretariat of the IPPC is provided by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations.
In more news, the MP for the Petit Savane constituency, Dr. Kenneth Daru, is certain that the multi-purpose sporting facility for Floissac will do well for the surrounding communities. He announced at a recent Village Council inauguration that estimates for the construction of the facility have been done for what he considers a great investment.
I have had the opportunity to come to this area like on Sunday afternoons to meet with my LYU folks, and the number of young people I see come up to that playing field and also the little old basketball court that's there. So I think that we have an estimate of $103,000 to create a multi-purpose sports facility. I think it's going to be, every dollar of this is going to be money well invested, and we have the facilities and the service of a qualified sports coordinator or sports instructor who studied in Cuba, Mr. Polido. Already have had discussions with him that he will manage this facility and ensure that programs are put in place, and the government is not going to spend all this money and then it's just going to go to waste.
In related news, an improvement to the road infrastructure is one of the main goals of the new council for the Bagatelle, Floissac, Point Carib area. Incoming chairperson of the council, Angelina Martin, said that under her leadership, she hopes to complete a number of road projects in the area.
The first is the access road to Cadbois via Fallin Square to facilitate the expansion of the Bagatelle village, as persons who have lots there can utilize them. The Timon Road up to Dorin's residence in Floissac and the area called Highway in Bagatelle need to be completed. The road to Abasso in Floissac needs surfacing, as it serves as a feeder road to a bay oil distillery and provides access to 2 elderly persons living in that vicinity. There are 2 access roads in store that all need surfacing. An access road, this is a long-term plan, an access road from Alequec to Wavin Zombie, so that this can open up agricultural lands and also probably provide for housing areas.
She would also like to foster closer relations between the council and community, as well as expand the beautification project in the area.
This present council, of which I am the chairperson, will work on bringing back that spirit of community by first taking the time to assess our needs with a view to addressing the challenges that are preventing us from moving forward and becoming the community that we can all be proud of. I intend to see an ongoing beautification program within the community. A clean community gives rise to a healthy people, and a healthy people results in a productive community.
The National Coordinator of the GEF Small Grants Programme, Esprit, is calling for the protection of Dominica's biodiversity. She made the call at the recent launch of an apiculture development project.
The UN General Assembly declared 2011 to 2020 as the International Decade for Biodiversity and has called upon everyone, government and civil society, private sector, to act to protect biodiversity as the natural wealth that exists in the life on Earth. Biodiversity provides us with food, fuel, medicine.
Biodiversity accounts for over 50% of the program's portfolio in Dominica. The recent apiculture project supports the biodiversity goals of the program.
The GEF SGP through the small grants supports equitable sharing of benefits derived from the use of the biological resources, in keeping with one of its principles, to develop community-level strategies and implement technologies that could reduce threats to the global environment if they are replicated over time. This project is intended to be of benefit to the entire country and have global implications. It therefore deserves the support and participation of all.
The representative from the United Nations Development Programme promises the organization's continued support in the quest to sustain biodiversity.
As we move forward in partnership with increased knowledge and understanding of the value of bees to biodiversity and the significant impact they can have on our livelihoods and very existence, let me encourage everyone to see this project as a stepping stone along the path to conserve and enhance the environment and encourage the sustainable use of the Earth's valuable resources. And let me assure you that UNDP will continue to provide the necessary support to the country program and to the grantees to ensure that you are able to attain the expected outcomes. We're committed to work with you towards the objectives of this project to conserve biodiversity, increase production of honey, achieve best quality and standards for certification, and increase market share and revenue.
Since the inception of the country program in 2005, 93 projects have been approved with an estimated $25,000 for the average project. To date in Dominica, projects total over $2,300,000.
Tasia, our news is very interesting today, don't you think?
Very. What stood out to you?
A number of things stood out to me. One is the teachers' rally which took place last Friday, because I think it's always nice to appreciate, especially the people who helped to build this lovely country.
Definitely.
And you, although you are not a teacher, had the privilege of attending the rally. What did you think?
That's true, but to correct you, Jarna, I've actually been a teacher for at least 6 months. I taught at the Orion Academy, so I do feel privileged.
I did not know that.
I do. But yes, I loved every aspect of it. We had a praise and worship session before the actual ceremony began. And it was just really nice to see all the teachers turning out in such large numbers to celebrate themselves. And they always say it's good, like you said, to recognize the people who basically make our children what they are in the future. So that was nice.
In the same vein, a similar vein, talking about appreciating, it's nice. What stood out to me as well in the news is that the Kalinago people and Kalinago culture will be recognized as part of Heritage Week
History Week.
Week. We usually focus on the African side
Yes.
of our history,
The
and it's
Negma
nice.
War.
Yes. But you know, the Kalinago people had a big role to play in who we are. Well, they still have a big role to play in who we are as a country now. So that stands out to me as well.
That's true. I agree with you there because, I mean, just recently we had African Day or something like that. Emancipation Day, that's right. And normally, even during like our independence season, I still feel like people think of it more as an African thing where it's actually a mix of cultures. And I think it's very important to highlight the Kalinago people, and just look at all areas of their culture, their language, their food, like cassava bread and all those things. So it's really nice that we are paying attention or focusing to them this year.
Yeah, this is your field. What also stands out to me is that the Honorable Parliamentary Representative for Petit Savan, Kenneth Darrow, mentioned a sporting facility for that area. So that stands out to me because, you know, we are in the stages of developing the indoor sporting facility in Stock Farm. And somebody might say, well, we're going to have this huge one, why put small ones in other places? But I think, you know, let's just do it. If we think that sports can be used as a vehicle for development, well, why not? I agree, you know, so it stands out to me as well.
I agree, and you took this with right out of my mouth, Jarna. I think it's really good. Not so long ago, I remember a FIFA rep was here, and not just focusing on football, but I think one of the things he said that it's always good to develop a sport across the island instead of just, let's say, the capital of the country. So I mean, not everyone may be able to come to town to play a sport, so it's nice that we can have this facility to cater to the neighboring communities in that area. And I mean, a lot of times people don't see sports as major development, but it is, and it can enhance your personality, it can make you disciplined, a lot of things.
I told you it was your field.
Yes, it is my field.
And that's the English news. McPherson St. Luce is next with the Creole highlights.
Allô tout le monde, bienvenue à cette nouvelle en créole. Non, moi, c'est McPherson St. Luce. Premièrement, travail capogoué bien formidable à un projet Titou Gorge. Parole celle-là sortie au Parlement Roseau Valley, Honorable Dr. John Colin McIntyre.
À Titou Gorge à Loda aussi, nous avons fait un beau projet là, nous avons mis un crossing, comme si it in your life là, it in your life là. Nous nous cross live là pour aller côté en facilité nous fait là. NPT là, nous travaillons, nous mettons un bon petit wash là, ou ça pour mettre là bien bon. Avec ça nous avons fait actuellement, nous avons mis un crossing en chemin, so là touristes viennent là, visiteurs viennent là, moun Loda viennent, tout le monde Dominique viennent, ils sont allés là. Pas de problème, voiture, avec, vous regardez, nous mettons une carte, jeunes gens nous mettons, c'est lifeguards, gens qui a aidé les gens pour aller, pour nager à gauche là, nous mettons ça là, so, toutes ces bails nous avons fait pour aider Dominique. Actuellement, à Roseau Valley, il y a l'eau monde qui travaille, l'eau monde, et c'est ça mon besoin. Et moi, les gars, des projets comme ça, pour faire tout papier travail pour tout jeunes gens à Roseau Valley, et tout Dominique.
On a de nouvelles, moun qui mérite service hors registre civil en Wozo, quand tu service plus facile à présent. Si le registrar Ozzy Walsh, toute information moun mérite assez ordinateur à présent.
Actuellement, nous sommes avec nos cas produits, certificates, pour moun qui mort, pour moun qui fait, birth certificates, pour moun qui marié, pour moun qui adopté, via computer. Nous finissons avec bagay ça, écrit. Tous les jours, nous sign ici 150 certificates tous les jours. Certificates yon, pas title certificates, mais certificate qui mort, birth certificates, certificate d'adoption, avec mariage. 150 tous les jours. Ça finit. Actuellement, c'est le computer qui met signature registrar à ce papier. Avec nous produit certificate via computer. Ça c'est une major revolution. Puis pour l'année canal, depuis nous commencer par certificates ici, c'est nous écrit fini. avec le mois septembre commencé, premier, deuxième semaine là, mois septembre, nous commençons par mon certificate via computer.
En d'autres nouvelles, le gouvernement Dominique signe un contrat pour deuxième phase bâtir un système de l'eau neuf en Cachakou. Travail ça là qui a commencé tout de suite, qui a expecté pour finir par finissement l'année là. General Manager de Wasco Bernard Etinov fait parole malgré projet là qui a coûté un lot l'argent et bien nécessaire par résident communauté là. En même temps aussi, ministre management de l'eau, Honorable Reginald Esprit, fait parole que moun là teni problème de l'eau, comme ça, il était bien nécessaire le gouvernement adresser cette situation là. Et de les projets là qui accompli, Dominique est bien assez chimé 100%, toute communauté en pays à de l'eau. Projet là qui a coûté 1,6 million de dollars, à peu près 800 000 déjà dépensés. En une semaine passée, projet scié pour système de l'eau à la pointe. Finalement, Dominica Olympic Committee a remercié Aid Bank pour assistance l'argent recevé hors institution là. Parole celle-là sorti du président organisation la Inns of Irish si la donation banque la fait par diverses institutions semaine passée.
Aujourd'hui là Aid Bank pas nous tout seul, pas moi tout seul, mais il va l'argent pour tout le monde. Et ça c'est un bon corporate citizen Aid Bank. Et nous avons 6 athlètes qui sont allés California Summer 2015 World Games. Et ti l'argent là yo ban nous aujourd'hui qui wede nous l'eau. Parce que vous savez pour aller à l'Amérique avec athlètes c'est un lot l'argent. Et Dominique nous partait ça aller pour 5 games because nous partait ni l'argent. Et aujourd'hui Aid Bank là moi content et vraiment pour remercier manager là et staff et tout le monde pour contribution ça là yo ban nous. Ça qui wede nous l'eau because tous les samedis nous ka train ces athlètes là. Et yo ka garder pour ti competition dans l'autre pays. Et à présent, nous allons en Californie, avec 700,000 moun, avec athlètes, coaches et officials. Okay, là. Et ça, c'est un bon temps, sous athlètes pour joindre yon et l'autre. Et il y a un lot docteur là, qui examine, fait tout bien. So, ça, c'est une bonne opportunité pour vous développer.
Messieurs, mesdames, ça, c'est tout pour nouvelle en créole pour à présent. Non, moi, c'est McPherson Luce. Au revoir.
Coming up next, why you should not take vitamins with cold water.
DOWASCO recognizes that clean water is vital to healthy living. Therefore, it spares no effort in providing a clean, safe, and reliable system. Help keep our rivers safe and clean. Do not cut trees along the river banks and do not pollute with garbage, human or animal feces, and chemicals. Think water, think life.
The body requires vitamins for it to function effectively at its peak. The body can make only vitamin D itself. Did you know that, Jarna?
I had a feeling, but it sounds different right now. Tell me more.
Okay, so here's more. It's important to get vitamins into the body at required doses and times. Do not take vitamins with drinks that are too hot or cold, as it will prevent the vitamins from dissolving properly when swallowed.
I see.
Yeah.
For maximum effect, take your vitamins with a lot of water so it reaches the stomach faster, where it can be adequately absorbed by the body. And that's all for this edition of National Focus. We always welcome your suggestions and your comments. Drop us an email at gis@dominica.gov.dm or visit our website, news.gov.dm.
Like our Facebook page, facebook.com/GIS News Dominica. You can also catch up on past National Focus newscasts on our GIS Dominica YouTube channel. From all of us here on the GIS News Desk, I'm Tasia Floissac.
And I'm Jarna Hector. Thank you for watching and join us again next time on National Focus.